My guest today is James Bailey. James is the COO and co-founder at SubQuery, working on all sorts of interesting, fast, flexible, and scalable Web3 infrastructure, including some new announcements, I believe. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks for having me, Andy. I think I've been on this a few years back, but it's good to be back here.
That's right. You were too. It was a while ago, wasn't it? So I'm sure there's been a bit happening in between. So I guess for the benefit of new listeners, people that don't remember that episode, it was some time ago. Be good if you could introduce yourself, James. Maybe just share a bit of your personal and professional backstory. What you've been doing that has kind of, I guess, led you to where we are today as co-founder at SubQuery.
Yeah, no, thanks, Andy. And it's been a long time. Don't remind me how long ago it was. It's kind of a thing you don't want to think about sometimes. How long you've been working in the ecosystem. But I've been involved in the eco for a long time, I think since 2018 or 17. I've been involved in Web3. I'm a Kiwi, just like you, and it's a pretty small industry or small ecosystem in New Zealand, but we try to make it work as we do. And many years ago, we were working on a business that was building centralized infrastructure, running RPCs for teams. And we kept hearing these problems around infrastructure, especially around data indexes and RPCs from teams. And we thought there's something here that we need to look at. There's something here that is a problem that is prevalent in the industry. And so that's why we started SubQuery. Now, SubQuery started as a data index, and I can maybe explain a bit more about that later. But it's a long journey to get here, and it's been a fun time and a roller coaster throughout. I have a background in software engineers, as not software engineer, but I discovered pretty quickly that I'm a lousy software engineer. I probably should stay away from the code, and so I do more of the product management side of things, and kind of anything that needs to be done, I guess, is a summary. But that's life for many of us in this industry.
Look, it sure is. And I know, James, that you're in Berlin, or you've just been in Berlin for an event, and you guys have announced a new product, I think, and maybe to a few people's surprise, it does involve AI, which probably makes sense in the world that we're living in at the moment. So do you want to just kind of bring us up to speed with what that new product is and what you guys have been working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe some backstory. So I'm here in Berlin for Web3 Summit. It's quite a cool event for a cool subset industry in Berlin. Very technical background of developers here. They're really smart, knowing a lot of stuff about the space. But we announced a new AI product. Now, maybe to a backstory of how it got here. SubQuery is a infrastructure company. Fundamentally, we started with being an indexer. Now, indexer is a service or a tool that takes blockchain data off the chain, aggregates it, and puts into a format that is much more easily queryable for your applications. So the outcome is you can build faster, more intuitive applications because the data layer is much more cleaner and much more efficient. Okay. We then moved to RPCs. RPCs are kind of the core way that applications interact with the blockchain. So an RPC is a computer that your application will send requests to or issue transactions to, and that RPC in turn will hand it off to the blockchain to save that to the blocks. So data indexes and RPCs are two pretty major aspects of the technical stack of an application. These aren't well known for anyone that's not a developer, but these are kind of core picks and shovels, I guess, of blockchain applications. And we're built in a decentralized network that can host these in a decentralized way. And what I mean by that is that anyone can run these RPCs, can join the network. And rather than your request going to a big centralized company that has huge data centers in AWS, who is front running you, who is using your request to derive analytics that help themselves, we can distribute those requests to a network of individuals. And that idea here is around reducing centralization, because with centralization you have risks of things being taken over, of performance issues, of things going down. Centralization is the antithesis of Web3. It's what we're trying to avoid, right? The entire point of Web3 is to avoid decentralization. And so that's what the network is doing now. Now, while building that network, while deploying these other infrastructure services, we realize that this network is actually quite, can easily apply to other infrastructure verticals. And one thing that we thought was a good next step, that we think could have big potential growth in the future, is AI inference. Now, we're not talking about training, we're talking about AI inference as like hosting of existing models. So let's say you train a model separately, and you train a model that is particularly good at providing suggestions of how to manage your assets across different networks, for example. You will need to host that model somewhere. You'll need to host that model so people can make queries to it, make prompts to it, and get responses to that. And that's what we're focused on. We're focusing on AI inference. We're focused on it because the AI inference space is currently extremely centralized, right? It's same as the old way. It's like two big companies in the world doing all the traffic. It's like Google and OpenAI is getting every kind of query right now. And that is, I think, a concerning factor for many that want to use AI in their applications, but have been pushed to use these big Goliaths that are analyzing every prompt you're using, are training new models off this, and they're closed source, right? They're keeping the benefit of this to themselves. So by having a decentralized version of AI inference hosting, we think we'll be able to help facilitate a growth in decentralized AI and a growth in more openness in AI.
Yeah, and so that's important, James. Obviously, just because, I guess it is, you said it yourself, it's kind of the same old story of, Web 2 being dominated by, 2, 3, 4, 5 centralized dominant players that make it very hard for everyone else. So we really are at risk of the same thing happening again with AI. So the idea is to, bring Web3 or blockchain style decentralization to AI, right?
Yeah, and let's be clear, it's not running an AI model on a blockchain. It's not really the
No.
smartest thing to do. It's not really great for that, but it's around orchestrating kind of the delivery of queries to different indexes or different node operators on the blockchain. It's about making sure that they're rewarded properly for doing the work that they do. But it's not running AI on the blockchain. Let's be very clear.
Yeah. So it's more about running AI inference at scale across a network of like independent node operators,
That's correct.
James.
There are a bunch of really great open source models. Like Llama is kind of the leading one that Meta have built in open source. And they are pretty much near or close to the performance of the existing leading closed source models. So they're very good. And we want to build a future where instead of sending all your prompts and all your content and all your private queries or your sensitive data to OpenAI, you can send it to an open source one and be more confident that no one's going to copy that for the future and build a new AI trained on top of it, for example.
And so you did a live demo, I believe, of this at the Web3 Summit in Berlin.
That's correct. We just finished a live demo. It was a really cool event, and we showed a live demo of showing a very early proof of concept, which we'll be releasing soon. Of this, as kind of a landing page where you can talk to it and see kind of where that query goes in the world. And that's it was great to do this at Web3 Summit because Web3 Summit is very kind of focused on decentralization. It's focused very heavily on this, and what Berliners are like. Berliners do quite like, are very into this kind of topic. So it was great to do it in the home of kind of decentralization here in Berlin.
Yeah, I've also seen you talk about, one of your goals being to power production-ready decentralized AI agents. Is that kind of like a separate branch from the Inference?
No, it's kind of the same, right? So we like, as an infrastructure company, our kind of threshold for production ready is very high. Primarily it's performance and reliability. We aim for 3.5 nines generally as our network grows, which is 99.95, and I think that's about 2 hours of downtime a year. So that's like one bad lunch break of downtime each year. Production ready for AI means that Let's say your app is something unique that you want to build a chatbot to help users work on something within your application. So you're building a bridge, and you want to build a chatbot that is able to support users with your bridge. You might want to, or even it doesn't have to be Web2 context. It could be something completely different. It could be out in Web2 context. But you want to build a trained model specific for your use case. Inference is just hosting that model. And that's what we want to do. So production really means that any developer could deploy it onto our network. A network of node operators could decide to run that, and they could then query that from their front end of their production applications. And they could use that into their real applications that thousands or millions of people would use, and be confident that that will never go down, confident that the request will be proxy to a valid node operator and be responded to in a short time.
And one of the ways you want to help bring this vision into reality, James, is by also fostering, I guess, like a decentralized AI community, right? So
it's very important, right? I think the AI community is already quite tight knit. There's some cool communities on platforms like Hugging Face, for example.
Yeah.
They're sharing awesome kind of new models that people build and ideas. We want to do the same in terms of just encouraging more people to be open around it, in terms of the hosting of it. So working closely with these communities, helping people learn about how to do this. I think a lot of teams out there want to incorporate AI into their platforms, but also question how to do so. It is a big, ugly, scary beast when you look at it from the outside, but it's actually quite straightforward if you ever do fine-tuning of a model. It's quite interesting how fast you can get somewhere and make it better. And so with the community, it's always about building content, writing guides and stuff, and helping grow the number of developers that know about and use this.
It's been an interesting, 24 months or so, I suppose, and certainly Web3, but really in AI, James, as the release and deployment of just more and more advanced LLMs are released into the wild, and more people are starting to, I guess, incorporate them into their daily life. And, that trend only will seem to continue. Just, it's a broader topic, I suppose, but love to get your perspectives on how you see, this kind of playing out at the moment, and your observations on what is happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at EthCC, which is a very big conference in Europe, the biggest I think in Europe, just over a month ago. And the number of side events that had AI in their name was like a ridiculous percentage. So it really has kind of captured. I think there's a huge overlap with people that work in Web3 and people that are interested in AI, because by nature, the developers in this industry are quite into innovative technologies. And there's no two more innovative technologies than AI and Web3. So there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram. One thing that I find interesting is the discussion around open source versus closed source. Last year, there was an author at Google or a report from Google that was kind of leaked, and it mentioned research at Google saying or claiming that AI has no moat. And I think that's interesting in terms of even Google is thinking we can invest millions into building huge models, but the open source community can probably do the same. We are seeing a porting of like graphics cards that might build that moat up. But as we've seen with like Llama, there is still a lot of competition there, and people have been able to build some pretty cool models open source without the same kind of resources as closed ones. I really hope that open source kind of wins this one, because as I've said many times, right, I don't think a future where OpenAI has access to every query that I've asked it. And I use ChatGPT quite a bit, right? And I've asked it a bunch of weird queries that I probably don't want people to read, right? Like the joke is, when I die, delete my browsing history and also delete my ChatGPT prompt log.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that too, and I'm exactly the same, and I'm sure it's just something that we all have to wrestle with. But it's just the nature of LLMs is it's easier to be much more intimate with your kind of conversations.
Well, it also said, like, we use it in a personal context mostly, but like companies also waking up that we could provide a lot of performance benefits if we could bring this into our internal domain and allow it to access our data and allow it to disseminate information within the company faster and easier, right? And they're probably in the same issue right now where they're like, these models, we put data into these black boxes, we know how it comes out, right? Open source around can kind of solve that, right? Open source, if there's open source models and companies can kind of internalize that into their domain and behind their firewalls, then that allows them to like benefit from this, but also maintain access to their IP and information. So I think there's a lot of like tricky things around information security and privacy that we haven't yet solved here. And I hope that open source hosting will kind of help us take a next step along that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, James. And like, how do you go about being, a smaller startup, I guess, wanting to be more along the open source line of side of things, also aiming to be decentralized? How do you try to compete with the likes of Google and OpenAI in terms of, I guess the two branches would be, number one, cost efficiency, and number two, kind of data privacy and protection for users?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we're not focusing on competing them on training big models. I don't think that would be a smart idea. We don't have access to a massive warehouse full of the latest NVIDIA graphics cards, and nor do I want, not if we have the money to buy any of those graphics cards. Now, what we can focus on is the inference hosting, which I mentioned, right? Google and Apple, Google and Microsoft and Amazon, you look at hosting software with them, and you'll notice that their data centers are actually quite expensive. In fact, these days when we run, or our node runners, we ask our node runners, our network, where you're running your infrastructure, most of them said they've moved away from the big three because they're getting quite pricey. We think there is a capacity of hardware around the world. A lot of people have small computers running at home, especially in this industry. A lot of our node runners already have small, like, private servers running in their houses or in a local data center, and we're trying to tap more into that capacity for the hosting of this, because running an inference model or running inference on an existing model doesn't actually require that much compute. It's just kind of passing an existing prompt to an existing model and waiting for a response, right? It doesn't require you like training it for millions at a time. You can do it one by one. So we're not focusing on something that's compute heavy. There's others for that. We're focusing on something that's compute light, but needs high reliability, needs high performance, needs ease of use, and needs a bit more of a global distribution to make it faster for your users.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. And I guess how do you plan to incentivize those people to become node operators and delegators and participate in that process? Because there'll be, as you said, a kind of a niche section of developers. You're going to kind of target those kind of tech savvy people, and then hopefully try and expand beyond that as well. But it's always that's always a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cold start problem, right? You need supply to concur demand, and you need a demand to encourage supply, right? We already have a collection of node operators, which helps us. So really our big focus will be on the demand side. And that's why building a community, putting ourselves out there and working closely with existing partners to try this out with them will help jumpstart the demand side of this. So our focus is pretty much solely on the demand side right now. And we believe that if we bring that demand, there are lots of node operators in Web3 running validators, running RPCs, running mining nodes that will potentially consider moving across if the return is enough. Now we reward users for AI. We have to do a new kind of payment model for node operators, and essentially they will be rewarded in tokens per token. A token is a term for AI, and a token is like a collection of like a part of a word, and you generally build in tokens. So if you write something like, what is the weather like today? That might be 7 tokens of input. And that is how you build usually in AI. So it'll be the same for us, because we want to make sure that the development experience is the same, whether it's Web3 or Web2, to make it easy to migrate across. We don't have to encourage developers to try a whole new paradigm. I don't think it works that well. Yeah, node operators be rewarded by being paid in R token for every token that they support queries for.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, James. All right. Well, look, as we start to finish off this part of the podcast, just anything else that we should know about this next step of the SubQuery network? Tell us what we need to know. And for people that are interested in learning more, maybe they want to dive in, maybe they want to become a node operator. What should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, the easiest place to start is our website, subquery.network. Even there's a little demo for AI that you can try out that will automatically send your request to a node operator on a network. So it's a good place to try it out. So subquery.network is a website, and there's a bunch of information there. And there's links to our documentation if you want to join as a node operator, as a delegator. There is lots of different options. There's a lot of stuff on our website, actually. I need to kind of clean it up a bit. When you go for a company and been doing stuff for a while, you start getting a lot of things on there.
Yeah, no, it's that website again, links in the show notes, obviously, folks, but subquery.network, very comprehensive network website. James, you're right. Yeah, there's a lot on there.
It's always a challenge.
And just while we're talking Web3 and Berlin, what's your vibe on kind of, I guess, the general state of all things Web3? What are you kind of picking up from the conference there?
Yeah, I think people always kind of associate the global market cap of Web3 as the kind of the proxy for the vibe. But I can tell you, I've been in Europe for the last month or so. I've been to a few events around the space. ECC was massive. The number of side events we went to was just ridiculous. I think every day we're up from early in the morning to like way too late at night, unfortunately, at different events, let alone the ECC conference itself. And Web3 Summit here is busy as well. Token in 2 weeks' time in Singapore looks to be busy as well. And I've looked at the event calendar there, and it's like 300 side events already. So developers are still extremely enthusiastic, I think, right now. There's a lot of development activity. A lot of people are building things. I think there is a sense that we've kind of potentially got through most of the technological hurdles right now, and it's now time to build applications. Developers are still going. And if we kind of separate the token prices from the sentiment of developers and builders in the ecosystem, they're quite different. It's very positive with the builders.
Very well said. Very well said, James. All right, well, it is time to start to finish off the show. And we do that, of course, James, by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
Let's go for it.
So I'm sure we did this, last time you're on, but I think that was 2021.
I remember the questions. That's the problem. I desperately remember these, so I have a good answer.
Indeed. So, hey, we'll just do it again. That's how we roll. No right or wrong way to do it, James. Just going to run some questions at you. Just, honest, hot take style responses, whatever you want to say. Go for gold. Question 1 for you. I think I know what you say, but question 1 is, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I'm very much a multi-chain opportunist. It's here and now. I've been saying it for many years. When I was probably last on, I was probably saying multi-chains away, and I think I've been proven right. The number of networks has exploded. We're quite big in multi-chain, and we have new layer 2s joining us and asking us to add support every week here on. I'd added 2 yesterday, for example, to our network. So multi-chain is the way to go these days. The challenge will be connecting those different chains. And we saw Polkadot had a way of trying to do that. Cosmos had an idea of how to do that. The layer 2 and Ethereum's, they're kind of figuring it out. But yeah, connecting all those different blockchains will be the next challenge.
Yes, indeed. Well said. All right. Well, what would you say then, James, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Firmest conviction crypto opinion. hopefully we never know Satoshi's identity. I think if we do, it'll be very detrimental to the ecosystem.
Yes, couldn't agree more. That's a good one actually. Yeah, I think that particular conundrum is best left unsolved. Indeed. All right. Well, look, Bill Gates famously said, James, that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. You'll be very familiar with that kind of idea, being a blockchain builder yourself. 10 years in blockchain is a long time. Anything you like here, Web3, SubQuery, AI, intersections of what does it all start to look like in 10 years' time?
I think if we crack the user experience part of things, we'll be a lot further along in 10 years' time. And in 10 years' time, if we do so, I think we'll find blockchain is more or less opaque in terms of you don't see it, but it kind of powers a lot of things under the hood. I think we'll see applications that operate normally, but they use blockchain technology to kind of avoid censorship, avoid government control, and avoid other issues out there.
Yeah, very well said. All right. Sci-fi author William Gibson famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example, James, of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
I visit China occasionally, and I just think it's amazing in China that I can go out with just my phone in my pocket, nothing else. I can order a taxi, which makes sense because this is about, but more like the whole payment mechanism in life is done through Alipay. When I buy something for 7-Eleven, when I want to hire a phone charger, when I want to hire a scooter or a bike, it's all in one app. And the future is here in China, I think, where in terms of these amazing integrations in the app. It's unfortunately there's obviously privacy concerns to that, which would work through. But it really amazes me how you just don't need any physical cards or keys or anything of the sort when you leave your apartment or hotel in China.
Yep. Very well said. Super apps. Brings us nicely to the final question, I suppose, James, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I recently read the June. Well, I read the first 4 books of the June kind of series. I think after the 4th one, I kind of got, this is a bit too strange. But the first 3, I think, should be required reading, and they're the most deliciously written books where every line has like 2 meanings that you can read twice and still be discovering kind of hidden, things in there. And it was amazing.
Yes, indeed.
The movies finally came out, I could kind of see that, but also know exactly what was going to come when it happened.
Yeah.
And seeing how he's merging all 3 of those books into those 2 movies, kind of.
The movies were spectacular, especially the second one. The second one was probably one of the more spectacular cinema experiences of the last decade, I reckon.
Yeah, no, the full-on like immersive experiences.
All right, we'll shout out Frank Herbert. Look, thank you so much for coming on the show, James, and spending some time with us today. Close it out just by telling people where people can find you online on X or wherever else you like to hang out online. And again, make the case for why people should come and check out what you guys are building at SubQuery Network.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Andy. You can, as I said, head to our website as well, our social media presence there. The easiest way to find me is just jump to any of those channels and just find me there. I'm usually quite active in our company Telegram or Discord service. You can also find me on Twitter, but I don't post there that much. I try to avoid social media. It kind of, I think, distracts me. It's like busy work, right? You feel like you've done something, but you haven't really done much. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter though, but just head over to this company, head to one of our our Discords or our Telegrams, and you'll find me there. That you can send me a DM there. The best thing about this industry is we're all very accessible.
Yes, indeed. Awesome. Thank you so much, James. All the best. I'm sure we'll do this again sometime, but yeah, bye for now.
Thank you very much, Andy.